Aloha, Wahinis. Stealing Solo. Let me just say that while it's perfectly okay to criticize Stealing Solo and the art and the whole campaign, I don't understand why you'd contact Harrison Ford or Lucas and let them know that somebody made a parody comic about Harrison Ford. This tweet by the Umbrella Guy. That Umbrella Guy, he says, if we're being logical, let's walk through reporting Stealing Solo to Disney. Because like the product or not, reporting it wasn't, I'm concerned for your well-being, mega corporation Disney. This is SJW cancel culture. If it hurts the guy they're friends with, Disney can ruin his life. BS. Yeah, it's a pretty good tweet. I agree with that. First of all, legally speaking, it is almost certainly fair use. There are exceptions for obvious satire and parody, but why create trouble for a guy who's just trying to make a buck? Hey, I'll keep it real with you. The comic, Stealing Solo, from what I've seen, the pages they purported to be from the comic they look like trash to me. And it didn't look like it was ready for publication. But to snitch on Jeff, to go outside the family, even if it is a dysfunctional family, to go outside the community, that's really gay. It's petty and vindictive. Even if Chuck Wendig or Tim Doyle did something similar, I would think it was just dirty pool to go tattle to the teacher, or in this case, tattle to the millionaires or billionaire companies like Disney. It's legally protected parody. Mad Magazine does it all the time. They do not seek permission because they don't need to seek permission for satire. Your only goal in this concern trolling is to create trouble for Jeff, who, from my limited interaction with him, seems like a perfectly nice and reasonable guy. The company will issue a cease and desist letter. Jeff will probably ignore it, and nothing will happen. America has strong protections for parody and satire. It's that pesky First Amendment. It's there for a reason. Stealing Solo is an obvious parody. I think it says it on the cover. Nobody would reasonably feel that this was an authorized Lucas, Disney, or Harrison Ford product. It probably says parody right on the cover. And I checked, and yes, it does. My point is, it's cool if the comic book, Hut, Preston, EVS, world-class BSers, and his girlfriend Yoko Ono are all fighting. But there are rules to this sort of thing. We don't need to go out of house. And yes, we are all under the same roof. SJWs would go tell on somebody. Don't be an SJW. I know they're bringing up that Jeff said he could sue people for defamation. He was angry, and he said something either stupid or something that he didn't understand. No, Jeff, the judge, yes, technically you can sue anyone for anything, but there's such a thing. I think it's called Rule 56 in Civil Procedure, summary judgment. If the judge looks at your plea and says that if everything that you allege is true, you have no cause of action, his plea would not survive summary judgment. Statements of opinion are usually fine. Defamation involves statements of fact. Besides, the Hut is probably judgment-proof. I.e., he doesn't have enough money that it wouldn't be worth suing somebody. You get a judgment against them and you can't get blood from a stone. Unfortunately, that pesky 13th Amendment outlaws involuntary servitude. I was talking about this in a chat with someone, and he mentioned a celebrity suing somebody for making and selling a bobblehead doll of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is a very public figure of the political variety. However, selling a toy with the image or likeness of a public figure is different from writing that contains images of a public figure. And really, you'd need to talk to an IP or entertainment attorney. But at $400 an hour, it's not worth it. The point is, why would somebody feel that they need to go run to the teacher and be a tattletale over some petty BS? That's something little kids do. Even teachers don't respect some snot-nosed brat tattling over something this minor. And to be honest, I'm surprised at the people who contacted Disney or Harrison Ford and Lucas. I'm really surprised that anyone in this community, or even anyone on this side of the aisle, would do that. Jeff at World Class BSer, he grossed about $50,000. That is barely the break-even point for a graphic novel. There is not much profit at that level. 50 grand is not 500 grand or 5 million. It's not even close. Even if I hated Jeff and Yoko, I wouldn't report him to the principal. I would just make videos laughing at the crappy comic. I would keep it all in-house. Some things you just don't do. So I'm surprised that anyone who was kind of on our side of the aisle would resort to calling up Disney. I know that the Hut and Preston have had their run-ins with EVS and some others, but what has Jeff ever done to anyone? And let me just be clear, even if EVS did something like this, I wouldn't support anyone tattling to Disney for EVS making a parody, or anyone making a parody, even if they're your worst enemy. It's like, just keep it in-house. You know, you don't need to involve outsiders. Jeff just seems like just a nice normie guy who likes comics and pop culture. I can understand having a problem with EVS or Jeff's girlfriend Yoko Ono. They are inflammatory characters. They know it. They thrive on outrage clicks and super chat dollars. What is Jeff's great sin? He wrote a garbage comic, and he gave Comicsgate a black eye. But you guys don't like a lot of people in Comicsgate anyway. And it's not like Jeff took the money and ran. He did write and deliver a book. The contract has been substantially performed. He is not a grifter. He just overestimated his own skill and ability to draw and deal with a publisher and fulfillment company. His state of mind wasn't to deceive, in my opinion. I assume that he was just naive, or maybe just not being honest with himself about his artistic skill. Yeah, this guy said some commie mark, kind of a little harsh. But he said, Stealing Solo is a case of an idiot effing up, not some super genius pulling off his evil scheme. A little harsh, but yeah. And here's the thing, it's a black eye for Comicsgate. But, I mean, everything's got to be in perspective. He doesn't have a history of campaigns, and it's his first campaign, and I mean, yeah, nothing should come in the mail like that. It's not a Victoria's Secret catalog. And here's the thing: is caveat emptor. The backers of Stealing Solo, they bought a pig in a poke, and what I mean is the Indiegogo showed exactly one page of art, the cover page. Why on earth would I said why on earth would you idiots buy it for $35? I mean, that's not fair. I mean, no matter how much you like somebody, you're going to have to see more than that. Another point is, why would EVS shill for this garbage comic? If EVS saw the interior art and he said it was great, or did he not see any of the art and he shilled for it anyway, which is ethically, that's not right. Just because Jeff is his friend and they have a YouTube show together, I mean, there's some things you just don't do. I get that he has to tell Jeff on the show, he has to have Jeff on the show, but he should have just been honest and said, I haven't seen the art, so I can't comment, so I'll just let Jeff tell you about it himself. Instead, he said something like, the art reminds him of some other more famous artist. I forget who he was talking about at the time. Comics Hut did a thing on it. So what happened? Why wasn't that art shown on the Indiegogo page? Was the art up there and then taken down? I have no idea. I looked at the Indiegogo the other day and I saw one piece of art. I thought, you'd have to be crazy to pay $35 for a comic that only shows a single image. The cover headshot, which looked cool, but one image doesn't sell a book. So why people gave him $52,000 proves that there is a sucker born every minute. It also shows people really trusted Jeff and or EVS. It sucks to see the buyers get taken advantage of, but you have to look after your own interests a bit. You can't just hand somebody $35 without seeing any of the art and trust that the guy is a great artist and writer. That is just a bridge too far. If you paid your $35 just to support his channel, that is one thing. But if you're expecting a comic, then you need to ask some questions before you just throw over $35. Especially when you consider someone who doesn't have a history as an artist. With EVS or Mike Miller, you're familiar with their work. But with someone who's a newcomer, you need to see a lot of sample pages. All I know about Jeff is he's got a YouTube channel. He said he had an art background, but I haven't seen any of his art. I mean, you're all adults here, and I assume that this is probably not your first Indiegogo campaign as a buyer. Yet, Jeff is ultimately responsible, but there's some blame to go around. EVS for pushing Stealing Solo, and the buyers, who got caught up in the Comicsgate buying frenzy. A little bit of structure would probably be a good idea. We can't have rules because Comicsgate is only an idea, but we could establish guidelines for what it means to be a Comicsgate project. Things like details that have to be present to get that Comicsgate stamp of approval. You might have to specify the page count, the artists on the book, all kinds of details that should probably go into a campaign, like a kind of a template. What a Comicsgate book should be. And I heard someone brings up something like this before, and actually EVS was against it. I think because he didn't want to get. I got the feeling that he didn't want to get nailed down. He's done some things like that before a few times where he was uncomfortable with IndieCron, I think, because for some reason it felt like he didn't want to share power or lose power. It's just what it felt like to me, and it just anyway. So like a Comicsgate template, it holds people accountable, and a lot of the big artists, the big campaigns do not want to be held accountable, because when you're held, for obvious reasons. So if we had a Comicsgate campaign template that said, okay, how many pages is the book? Is it going to be? What's the format? Hardbound or square bound or magazine format? Staples in the middle. Who are the artists? How many variant covers are going to be? Who's the cover artist? Who's the interior? Who's doing the lettering? Who's doing the coloring? Because some of these campaign the Indiegogos and Kickstarters are very vague on all these details. And if you're paying your money for these campaigns, it's just, you got to ask for more. And the thing is, if we had like a bar where people had to kind of meet that bar to get on shows, your Indiegogo had to list certain details, it would just make things easier for everybody, because most of us are backing more than one campaign a year, and we want to be able to look at the Indiegogo and say, oh, okay, so-and-so's doing the covers, and so-and-so's doing the interior, and there's going to be so many pages guaranteed, and stretch goals will you know what I mean? It would be nice to have some details. And I know there's like the EVSs and some of the other big guys are pushing against that because they want to promise 88 pages and deliver, I don't know, half that or whatever Cyberfrog delivered. Though, I'm not, and the art looked fantastic, but you know what I'm saying? Am I talking crazy talk here? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys, and I'll see y'all next episode.